Roguelikes are repetitive, at worst tedious, often focusing on a single gameplay loop. You'll fight through a dungeon, hone your skills, die spectacularly, lose all your progress, and of course, because you get off on pain, do it all again. We love the genre despite being forced to fail over and over, because when we finally succeed, the satisfaction is simply better knowing we earned it. Bone Hydra? More like Bone Dydra. We'll cut that. It's like having a cold drink after a hard day's work in the scorching sun, except you're likely alone in the dark room, wasting hours to beat a sexy demon woman with a whip. Whip me, mummy. But if satisfaction was all we needed for a game to be perfect, we'd all be playing Pressure Washer Sim. Oh! The reality is, a good roguelike requires two things. First, shockingly, the gameplay loop actually needs to be fun. Because if you're spending hours doing the same task over and over, you better make sure that task is enjoyable. And second, even when you fail, you need to earn something. If you can't feel yourself edge ever closer to satisfaction, there is no motivation to try again. This is the major problem with the genre, and it isn't easily solved. Loop Hero not only solves, but overachieves when dealing with these problems. You begin simply as a nameless warrior suffering from the world's worst hangover. Lost in the darkness, your memories have been erased all except for two: a terrifying lich devouring the universe, and a simple path in front of you. As you endlessly loop the same path over and over slaying monsters, you randomly remember the world around you in the form of cards. Cards that give shape to the world. Groves grow along the path, mountains rise from the void, and of course, monsters return. This is the core gameplay of Loop Hero, which despite sounding overly repetitive, is incredibly satisfying. Not just because of the gameplay, but also because, thankfully, the game has an amazing soundtrack. Wait, what's happening? Oh my god. Oh, it goes so hard! Wait, at its core, Loop Hero lets you create your own difficulty. You'll begin by slaying slimes, looting terrible gear, and a few random cards that, once placed, will allow you to collect more resources and even buff your hero like these mountains, which give you stone and increase your health. But don't get greedy or you'll find your loop cut short by a harpy that's appeared thanks to those very mountains. And when you're inevitably forced to flee back to your ramshackle camp because you placed too many monster spawning tiles, leave me alone, I just wanted the stone. You'll use those resources you gathered to build a gymnasium, which allows your hero to level up while on loops, or a herbalist hut so you can use potions in battle, and so much more. The place where Loop Hero differs from many roguelikes though is it's actually a game of confidence and damage mitigation. Instead of every run ending in a total death or total success, every time you reach your campfire you have the chance to flee with all of the resources you've gathered. So will you strategically advance backwards or push yourself for just one more loop, brother? Well, obviously I'm not an idiot, so I'll do just one more loop. I'm gonna die. No, I shouldn't have done one more loop! If you're lucky enough or stupid enough to place a lot of cards, you might also notice this little green bar filling up. Continuing the trend of picking your own difficulty, if you fill this bar up entirely, you'll trigger the boss event. And you really don't want to do that until you're ready. Alright, bring it on, you big bitch. I'm taking you down. Bam! Oh my god! Bosses make or break a roguelike experience, and I found Loop Hero's cosmic horrors genuinely challenging, but not so out of reach I couldn't see a way forward, and every time I triumphed over one, fuck you, lich, that took 20 goes, I'd find myself feeling a whole new wave of dread. Is that a black hole dog? That god? Is that
Psycho Mantis?
Sadly, it doesn't matter how challenging, interesting, or well-designed the bosses are. After all, Loop Hero is a deck builder. I know, which means it should suffer from the same problem almost every deck builder suffers from. Once you find a deck that works, you become overpowered, unbeatable, and well, bored. But Loop Hero solves this by bullying the ever-living shit out of you. Every card you play, whether it's a mountain, treasury, grove, cemetery, or even just a simple forest tile, won't just give you benefits, but also major drawbacks. The treasury will give you resources for every tile surrounding it, sure, but then when it's fully surrounded, it spawns a gargoyle that hits like a truck. Leave me alone, this isn't the kind of stone I want. The grove spawns rat dogs with high evasion every single day. The cemetery has skeletons with huge defense, and those forest tiles you love because they increase your attack speed? Yeah, place too many of those, you'll suddenly find yourself facing down a wooden clone of yourself. Hey, good looking, wanna kiss? Like any good roguelike, with every run you'll learn what cards work together, tweaking your deck ever so slightly. But something you wouldn't expect from a game like this is how deep the tile interactions actually are, and how often they're discovered entirely by chance. It could be as simple as placing a meadows next to any non-meadows tile. This means you'll be healed 3 health a day per tile instead of 2. Or placing a blood grove next to a grove means any enemy that's below 15% health dies instantly, which sounds amazing. Until you realize you also are affected by this rule, and even worse, that blood grove It spawns an amalgamation of flesh that hits so hard, you'd think it was a boss. Well, if it isn't the consequences of my own actions. One of my favorite combinations has to be the village card. Once played, your hero will pass through healing slightly, and being given a quest to slay a monster currently on the loop. You succeed, you get rare gear. Sounds great, right? And you can even place wheat fields alongside the village to buff the healing it offers. But that's not the combination that I love. By chance, if you place a vampire mansion alongside that village, well, you'll turn it into a ransacked village, overrun by 4 ghouls and their vampire master. Holy shit, it's like a Michael Jackson music video in here. This is a brutal tile to battle, but if you can survive 4 loops, the village begins to prosper, the ghouls vanish, and the town offers better healing and rewards. You are endlessly creating your own difficulty, weighing up risk, reward, and learning to use the game's own rules against it. Sure, if I combine my 9 rock tiles into a mountain, I'll gain a huge chunk of resources, but I'll also have to start facing harpies. So what if I combined it, received my reward, used a card to break it apart, and then did this again and again? Or I could place a road carefully around my village, which lowers the total number of enemies that can be on one single tile. Now when I ransack it, I'm not facing 5 ghouls, I'm facing just 1. Jackson 5, more like Jackson dies. We'll cut that. Loop Hero is simple to understand, but due to its incredible depth, hard to master. When you start out, you'll put on whatever gear you find on your loop, but slowly you'll learn to focus specific stats, like attack speed, defense, vampirism, or even just simple health regen. Of course, the loot you find is completely random, so you won't get a lot of choice, often being forced to pull together strange builds on the fly, but this causes what was just a random resource run to somehow turn into a glass cannon vampirism build so strong you beat the boss without breaking a sweat. What the hell, that took me like 20 goes. Or maybe you get lucky and find a perk that saves 10% of all your resources every time you loop, and another that doubles your health regen. So you stack as much health regen as possible until you've built so much that you literally cannot die. You're happily looping endlessly, storing as many resources as you want. You've broken the game. You are unkillable. Fuck! And just when you feel like you're getting the hang of it, when you thought it might be getting a bit repetitive, you'll unlock new cards, new tiles, new mechanics, and are faced with such frustratingly satisfying bosses, well, you'll have to rethink your entire strategy. And then when you start to get the hang of all of that, you'll unlock the Rogue, who focuses on attack speed and crits, and eventually the Necromancer, who summons an entire army of skeletons every battle. Get him, boys! 2 completely unique classes with their own unique stats and playstyles. Take the Rogue, for example. Rather than dropping gear, monsters drop trophies. The more and high quality trophies you collect in a loop, the better random gear you get. Suddenly, all those cards that you thought sucked are amazing, like the Outpost, which spawns guards to help you fight, but they'll steal any gear that drops. On the Warrior, it was pointless, but on the Rogue, it doesn't have any negative effects on your trophies. Sorry guys, this is America, you're not getting paid a livable wage today. For a game that is built on the concept of endlessly looping the exact same thing, Loop Hero's endless flexibility is something I'm blown away by. Every run feels fresh, constantly being forced to think up new creative builds, try new decks, new tile placements, and strategies to overcome the next wave of hell. The only problem this game has is I'm physically incapable of retreating what I should. I will forever choose to do just one more loop, brother. Fuck. 4 out of 5.